Welcome to AI for You. Today's use case focuses on using AI for competitive content gap analysis to strengthen your program pages and institutional messaging. Many higher ed marketers struggle to keep program pages competitive and comprehensive, often missing opportunities to address key questions or differentiators that competitors are successfully highlighting. In this episode, we explore AI's role in higher ed with Stu Eddins, the Chief Digital Strategy Officer at Stamats. Let's jump right in. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Stu.
Hey, it's great to be here.
So, why don't we go ahead and start off by you just telling me a little bit about some of the ways that you're using AI in your work at Stamats?
Oh, sure. Actually, we've been using AI in a lot of ways for a lot of years. A lot of the work that my team does is in digital advertising. For example, Google has been using machine learning for easily the last 8 to 10 years in its platform. So a lot of the tools have been so common that they're overlooked anymore in that regard. In other ways, the more recent rush toward AI with chatbots and so on, we're actually finding a lot of ways to use it, not just in client facing, but internally. And we actually may find that some of the best use is coming from internal efficiencies rather than some magnificent product that anybody can push out into the world. So that's been kind of the direction we're heading in the last several months.
Yeah, it's amazing when you start using it to solve your own problems, whether personal problems or work problems. It all of a sudden starts giving you new ideas and new opportunities, especially if your entire team is using it, then, everybody gets going, and really creating that community of use cases is a great resource to have.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, if you know, you know. That we're back in 1985 with Netscape Navigator challenging AOL. This is a period where we're going to be going through a lot of change. There's a lot of forecasting that borders on wishful thinking going on, and the expectations that get set from that are mixed. Some people's expectations are failure. It'll fall flat on its face. Why bother taking the time? The other extreme is I'll be out of a job. I mean, that's part of it. The other expectations are that, it'll solve everything from world hunger to cancer. And so there may be some applications that come along on those, but it's not going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
We all have to figure this out. That correlation I made between AOL and Netscape is very much the case here. When people have been used to using those walled gardens of internet for years and then being unleashed across the entire web, the first thing they didn't know was what question to ask. Why do I want to do this? Well, we're figuring that out a little bit now. And I think it'll be interesting to see where we head out, because I don't think anybody has a clear picture.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Even the engineers that are creating the tools don't really know why they work the way they do, or exactly how to program them to work differently.
Right. There can be some fear mongering that goes along with that. We could go back to the old Asimov story of iRobot with the 3 laws of robotics and, not allow harm to come to humans and all that. But we've seen that movie. I believe that what we're probably going to notice right off the bat is going to be personal assistant type help. And I think that that's where things are going. I mean, man, I've been polishing up my crystal ball on this for like the past 3-4 months. I've got a lot of wild ideas, and they all sound incredibly logical when I string it all together. As you pointed out, the fact is nobody really knows. It's a surprising turn each day in capability or in learning. And I think that that's the type of frontier in which a lot of positive discovery gets made by accident.
And, I think you mentioned personal assistants. I definitely think that is, in all of our futures, personal tutors. And I think that's really going to start impacting, the content space and especially the search space, because, I was listening to one of your previous podcasts where you were talking about, people are still searching. They are searching more than ever, but they are not just searching on Google anymore. Now it's search everywhere optimization, right? They're searching everywhere. And it really goes back to the fundamentals of good content marketing. You have to have the best answer out there. You have to be solving problems and answering questions and really thinking about the ways that people are searching, where they're searching, and how they're asking those questions. And I think if you can capture that, then it doesn't really matter if it's Google or AI or social. It's changing the landscape, though.
It is. And I was having a conversation with a colleague the other day, and it came down to a point where I just asked him a flat out question. It was all pro and con on AI and so on. I said, okay, so AI, Chat GPT, X number of months it's been out there. How have you as a person changed because of that? And after a little bit of back and forth between us, because I want to ask a question of both of us, the answer is we haven't. We have not changed. And I think that's part of the key. The people who use this stuff haven't changed. Their needs haven't changed. Their wants and desires haven't changed. We just have another avenue to explore to achieve them. I'm preparing for my own webinar kind of on this topic later on in the week. And I found this kind of a fascinating thing. Chatbots have grown 80% in the last 24 months. Chatbot usage, 80 some percent. Google search has grown 21% in that same time. What we're finding is that this is in addition to a new empowerment that doesn't necessarily replace what we had before. It just takes it to another level. And this is also why I don't think that we have to worry too much about certain jobs being threatened. We have people who've been engaged with working with organic search, SEO for ages. Guess what? That's foundational for AI. The whole idea that somebody could turn over conceptualization and everything else as far as creating content to an AI entity to generate content that's going to have meaning? Well, in the literal sense, yes. But what it may lack is resonance, because it didn't replace the person who wrote it, because that person wrote it through the filter of their own needs. Those things have not changed. The people have not changed. And what we're going to expect, well, their expectations come and go. I mean, I expected to have a pony by now, and I don't have one. But the real world is going to settle down and figure out how to use it. And I think that's where we're going to find probably the most grassroots growth with this, when the shine is worn off a little bit. And it's, oh, what the heck, let's just try it. And it turns out to be something wonderful for that person.
And we've seen that so much with different technological innovations. It's not the new technology that creates the massive impact.
Mhm.
It's the way that it's used, right?
Yeah. There's so much stuff to read along these lines, and not just about AI, but about how any technology, when it first comes on the scene, causes a disruption. A recent article, and I read this, and I don't recall where, but it was talking about, is AI a bubble, economic bubble? And by the end of the article, they had come to the conclusion that they always are. Every type of technology, the internet had a bubble. The AI will have a bubble. The Industrial Revolution caused a bubble. Railroad expansion caused a bubble. It's whether it continues onward that answers the question of whether it will burst or not. And the continuation is not whether the technology will go forward, but the application of it.
Right. Absolutely.
And I did try to break my Chat GPT the other day. I took everything that I was able to find about AI that day, just that day, and fed it back in and asked it to summarize it for me. And I set it up for failure. I got to tell you that. Part of the fun is let's break things. Though Chat GPT still works for me and others, it did not come up with a satisfying answer because it was a terrific experiment in garbage in, garbage out. And these things have not changed. It's just what goes on. So bots have grown. Are we on a bubble? Maybe. All these things. We don't know, because the other thing AI can't do for us is tell the future.
Not yet.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Right. Not yet.
So bringing this back towards higher education, you do a lot of work with higher education
Yes.
institutions. What do you think are the biggest challenges for higher ed when it comes to integrating AI?
The biggest challenge is authenticity, because the one thing we're trying to do with higher education is very often connect with a particular type of person. And that may be an 18 to 20-year-old, depending on what you're offering in higher education. Graduate classes, different audience, and so on. But with so many options, it's the authentic connection that wins. It's the one that feels the most real to me. And there's always the potential with any type of a artificial anything, AI, that it comes across as a little too plastic, that it comes across as sincerity. Yeah, I can fake that. That's probably the biggest challenge they face with it. The other challenge is very different. What is AI going to do to the medium of learning itself, to the medium that supports learning itself? There's already a lot of examples out there, lesson plans, classroom work, and so on. That's all been generated by AI, because it is able to very quickly go out and find all the examples it needs and put together a reasonable entity that is a class. There's still judgment involved as to whether it's a good class or whether it teaches the right thing, but easily correctable. So I think that higher education, much like any other vertical, has to address AI on multiple levels. And I think that it will not be the same solutions for both.
So what do you tell institutions who aren't starting to think about integrating AI and who aren't starting to figure out how to integrate it into their processes, either on the, administrative side or on the teaching and learning side?
The thing I'm telling you right now, if somebody says, oh, well, we're just not into that right now, this is almost like fear of loss type talking to somebody, speaking to somebody, but it is, well, you may not be, but all of your prospects are. They're not expecting you to be any better at it than they are. But the idea behind marketing or connecting with people in any way has always been meeting each other in a common place. And if those tools that they're using are AI, if it is Chat GPT, if it is Gemini, if it is something in an app that we don't even know about yet, if that's what they are, it's not the medium. AI is the medium. It's not it. It's the message. What are you telling them in that moment that's going to get their attention? Stop looking at AI as being a competitor to what it is you want to get done, and look at it as a carrier for what you want to get done. It's not something that I want people to walk away with thinking, well, this is inevitable. We just got to deal with this. Okay, maybe start from that and warm up a little bit. I don't know, but don't ignore it. This is like trying to have ignored the internet and hoping it would go away. You know what? That worked for a while. And for higher education, there was not a lot of competition online, lynda.com and so on that was out there. But then we hit a moment like COVID, and it became that remote education was not just a possibility, but we got kind of good at it in some ways. And it wore down some of the perceptions that consumers had about it and made it, okay, well, this is acceptable. So there's a little more emphasis on remote learning that way, as aided by the internet. Same thing's going to happen with AI.
Yeah, and you're already seeing that from, from Google and OpenAI. They're already putting out their own courses and their
Yeah,
own training.
yeah,
And, they're not doing that out of just the goodness of their
no,
hearts. They're
no,
doing that so that they become the source that you go to get your education
right,
around how to use these
right.
tools. And,
And
education institutions need to be thinking about that.
very much so. And I often feel as though the internet was the starter's pistol for the information race, and whoever can have the most of it and control it is going to be the winner. That's a pretty cold-blooded way to look at it. But I think if you held that thought up to Google or to Microsoft or so, you would find out that fits to some extent. Now, I don't know what you get for having the most information, but it would seem that brass ring is worth all of it, that they keep pursuing it.
And then you wonder if AI is the performance enhancing drugs
Yeah,
that go
yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah. And I can tell you that some days I could use a performance enhancing drug when I've got to come up with the 412th keyword for something. But
Absolutely.
it's okay. Let's use that and go back to another use of AI. This is where I'm talking about the personal assistant. We need to get AI infused into things because it's there. It's there to be helpful. Keywords. How many different ways can you describe an accounting degree? If I said go, you would come up with the same number no matter how long I give you. It's just going to be a somewhat finite list. Turn that over to AI. Then go through and use your brain to sort through what you want to keep and not. Let the tool do the grunt work for you. Let it do the groundwork. I talked to a number of writers. You know one down the hall from me here. In our organization, we talk to writers about AI. The bat goes up immediately, and it's like AI can't do what I do. And the answer to that is, of course, it cannot. It can't. It can take what somebody else has written times 53 other somebody else's and come up with something, but it can't really put your unique spin on something. And that's going to be key. But that doesn't mean you ignore AI. You use AI to do research. You use AI to do things that it can do en masse that you could not do with the time you have allowed. Here's where I do it. I have people that do ask me for things like in my role with analytics and other, okay, we need to enhance this page on our website. We need to enhance, let's go back to that accounting AAS degree. This is our page. We need to enhance it. What should we do? What are the metrics? What are the key, what are the search terms, and on and on and on. And I answer those questions. That's actually easy. The tools have existed for years. I'm not unique in this, but nobody asks me to do it either. What I do is then I search for that term and I take the top 10 pages that show up in Google and I say, okay, Google, Gemini in this case, read these pages, summarize them for me, compare it to my page and tell me where the gaps are. I could do
Yeah,
that
these tools
manually.
are so good at gap analysis.
Yeah,
It is,
that's what it
yeah.
does. Use it for its purpose. If its purpose is taking vast amounts of data and summarizing it and being pretty darn accurate at that. Now, if you gave it links to 10 websites that were, about monsters in the deep sea, then it's going to give you back a really well sorted out and summarized answer about monsters in the deep sea. But, if you're giving it your competitor websites and you're saying, this is what they're all saying, what do they have in common? Who has the most unique point? And how do they all compare to mine? And it takes you several minutes to come up with the links. They're right there in Google, copy them. And by the way, don't just do Google. Also use Bing to see if it gets different answers. Microsoft's Bing search engine is used for a lot of stuff out there. So it's doing massive amount of learning. You want that differential analysis a little bit. You want to see somebody else's ideas about this and combine them all. Then feed that into the AI, have it do its job, have it tell you where the gaps are, have it then say, you know what? We're talking about all this stuff, but absolutely nobody mentions what type of jobs you can get from this degree. Let's talk about that. And then you take your judgment and apply it from there. It doesn't need to be the fact that it solves your problem. It can be used probably more effectively for helping you define the problem, define the opportunity, and then use your own brain to figure out what you want to do after that.
We see the speed that these tools are being,
Mm-hmm.
evolving and how quickly they're being developed and new features added. Where do you think AI is going to go in the next year or two that, higher ed professionals should be paying attention to or thinking about?
The speed and power has the limit of human attention. You hit a point of speed that you're so fast that I don't really care. The next nth degree of speed doesn't matter to me. You can say instead of 40 million pages, we crawled 60 million pages. It makes no difference to me. What did you give me at the end? That's what I'm looking for. So the technology to some extent will take care of itself. The application of the technology is going to change a lot. And one way I kind of explained it to somebody is right now, all the AI tools that are out there, and sometimes people are oddly, they'll pick their favorite. Like, I only use Perplexity. I would not ever use ChatGPT. Those distinctions are drawn for reasons that don't seem to make a lot of sense other than to the individual who makes that distinction. I think what we're going to find is that these different technologies will find specific application. I think that we're going to find that, let's say Claude does spreadsheet analysis far, far better than Gemini could do. But Gemini, because of the vast amount of historic data that it has access to through Google search, 20 some years of knowledge graph, if you want to have a scholarly data analysis, you're going to turn to Gemini to do that. Different tools for different things. How that applies to higher education depends on your job. If you're in the front office and you're managing the workings of the school, you may be more inclined to be using Claude. So don't get locked into any one thing. Look at what they do differently. At some point, somebody's going to come up with an AI that is the master of all AIs, and it picks the right one for you depending on the task you gave it. That's where we're getting closer to the agentic AI. Now, I mentioned before that I was polishing up my crystal ball, and I think this is where it comes in. Right now, a lot of our technology in digital is based around websites and getting people to come to them. AI as a query tool, as a search tool, doesn't generate a lot of clicks. In fact, very few clicks. They're not going to the website is coming to them. So the value of the website may degrade over time a little bit, here and there. People are still going to go there eventually. You either have the human need to hear it from the horse's mouth and go directly to the source, or you have the luxury of time and want to do a little deeper exploration. You don't want the summary, you want all the words instead. So the website's still going to exist in that regard. But I think AI may get applied to that website and make it look very different for you, Brian, than that website looks for me. And I think that's going to be based on the interaction between the tool I tend to use most as my AI source and how it tells the website to prepare for my visit. I think that's how personalization may happen. And that doesn't happen because of cookies like in a modern browser. It happens because I went out and I paid somebody, instead of designing my website, to design my AI agent. And therefore, it knows me inside and out, privately inside my own fortress of information. And when I ask it to do something, it is my proxy, me going to visit these websites and find stuff. And when it needs to be visualized, that's where the personalization comes in. That's my flight of fancy. That's my crystal ball.
No, I agree entirely. I think websites are going to become content repositories for AI that, may exist for bottom of funnel final purchases, but I think the delivery is going to be through our personal assistants that are going to decide, what parts and pieces of different websites are going to give you the best opportunity to select the products and services that you want based on your personal needs. So, yeah, I
It-
like that.
have you used Notebook LM much?
Oh, love it.
Okay.
Great tool.
It creates slideshows. It can create video under the right circumstances. It can create documents. It can create mind maps.
Podcast.
Right.
Great.
Now, let's make that my personal assistant. I have this information I want to get from you, but I prefer video. It's going to take your database and format it in the video for me. Your branding is going to come through in that video because that's what your AI is telling my AI to do. We're nowhere near that. That's one possibility out of dozens and dozens. But you need to be ready to have that idea, to say that this is some sort of a possibility. Because I've said it doesn't mean that anybody else in the world wants such an interaction. But the thought that we could tailor the experience of the user to their personal taste and how they think that they take in information better, a slideshow versus a video versus a simulated podcast, and the information gathering, my tool knows what I like best for a particular type of information and it gives it to me that way. Our ability to deliver our information has to be prepared to conform to those different types of delivery. And that's not going to be a website designed with great colors and little icons and such with HTML. That's going to be a database of access with a lot of information about how to. That doesn't mean we stop developing websites anytime soon. We're
Yeah.
miles and miles and miles away from that. But it does help us understand how we need to be thinking about our content going forward, how we need to
Yeah.
structure it so that if that's the possible future, could it be adapted? Could our content be adapted to that? If it's not that, but something slightly different, we're still on our website, but the personalization happens there. How do we, you wind up with the same kind of answers to get it either personally delivered to me or your website personalized for me. It comes down to many of the same answers about how we think about the content we want to deliver, how we structure it. It comes down to what is the message we want to get across as unique that says that my accounting class is miles different than the same college, 2 counties over. They offer accounting class. Oh God, you don't want that. That's horrible. Ours is better, not just because we say so. Here's why. Boom, 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 boom. Those are the type
Yeah.
of things we need to be doing today.
I think separating the content from the design, from the delivery, that headless CMS type of paradigm, I think that's definitely, and infusing it with schema and with structured content. I think that's going to be critical. If you're doing a website redesign, why not go ahead and prepare yourself for what's probably going to be coming
Yeah.
next?
When you consider, this is an Android phone, but you consider the most popular version of a smartphone, the iPhone, designed by Johnny Ive. And what he's out there doing right now is designing a screenless AI device. Now, he's either a prophet or just making something really expensive. We don't know which. But people are out there thinking about whether we need to have a screen at all. And what that really tells us is that our content has to be able to stand on its own no matter what the delivery is. I would say that that's no different today than it would be 5 years from now. The whole
Yeah.
goal is not to say the same thing the same way as everybody else does, but to have your content stand on its own, get your message across in a way that describes how you're different, better, unique, simply 5 miles closer, stop by, whatever it is. Lean into what it is that make your offering yours.
Absolutely.
If you can't do that, then you're just another answer. And I don't think you can expect to get to rise up in either organic ranking today or AI citations tomorrow.
Agreed. Agreed. So one of the last questions I always ask people is what specific AI use cases are most helpful and useful to you, either personally or professionally?
I have two. I just described one with going out and looking at web pages and doing analysis that way. The other one is probably the most personal to me and where I need the most help in the world. You might have been able to tell from my conversational style that I fly around a little bit. I use AI to keep me on track, my personal day. In particular, we're very much using the Microsoft world of Outlook and OneDrive and so on. I really started leaning into Copilot as my secretary, if you will. I'm able to ask Copilot before this meeting with you. I turned to Copilot and said, I'm having this meeting. Here's the time. Find me all the communication with Brian. By the way, also go out and find some information about Brian and what he's said about AI and give me a one-page summary. And it did that. Now, I've not relied on those notes one bit, as may be evident from the conversation we've had, but it was there for me. But I do that same thing for internal meetings. I have a meeting coming up this afternoon. It's about a client. Give me the communication from the last week, summarize it, what to-dos came up from that, and what communication was relevant to those to-dos. That is more efficient than me going out and doing it. It's also stuff I've always wished I could do, but didn't have the time. It's directly applicable to the clients I service, but the biggest impact is probably on me and my workday.
Yep. Stu, I can't thank you enough for your time and sharing your insights with the audience today. If they want to reach out and stay in touch with you, where's the best way for them to do that?
Well, the best way is really at stu.eddins@staymates.com. That's directly to my inbox. You can also go to staymates.com and look up our podcast where Mariah and I completely butcher a number of subjects about every other week. We have a lot of fun. We try to be slightly irreverent about what we do, but we've been doing digital marketing one way or another for several years. Sometimes the emperor needs to be pointed out that he's not really wearing new clothes. So that's kind of
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time and putting out all the great content and keeping us all focused on what we need to be thinking about.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
Stu's perspective offers a crucial reframing for higher ed institutions that are struggling with adoption anxiety. The insight that human needs haven't changed, only the tools available to meet them, helps demystify AI integration and focuses attention where it belongs, on authentic connection and meaningful differentiation. His vision of personal AI agents reshaping content delivery presents both challenges and opportunities. If websites evolve into content repositories that feed personalized experiences through AI intermediaries, institutions have to start thinking differently about content structure, schema markup, and how they communicate unique value propositions. The competitive analysis workflow that Stu describes demonstrates AI's practical value for tasks that would consume hours manually. By letting AI handle the heavy lifting of reading and comparing competitor content, marketers can focus their expertise on strategic decisions about positioning and messaging. Stu's point about meeting audiences where they already are with AI tools echoes a fundamental marketing principle: go where your audience is. Institutions that dismiss AI because they're, not into that right now risk missing opportunities to connect with prospects who increasingly rely on these tools for research and decision making. The comparison to AOL and Netscape Navigator reminds us that we are in a period of transition and discovery. Just as users initially struggled to know what questions to ask when encountering the open web, we're collectively learning how to maximize AI's potential. The institutions that experiment, fail, learn, and iterate now will be better positioned as these technologies mature. Please reach out to me with unique ways that you're integrating AI into your professional and personal lives. And as always, blue skies and keep creating.